This class is concerned with business strategy formulation. Now, strategy formulation, well, we start with a mission statement for the business. What is the business trying to do? What is the purpose of the business? So a short statement indicating the types of area that the business will operate in and what it's attempting to do overall and within the sector it has selected. So the mission statement is a short statement explaining what the business is and what it's trying to achieve. Influencing the mission statement will be external forces, the environmental forces, the forces of politics and sociology and the technology, the customers, the competitors. There will be many forces operating on the business from outside. The business will be entering a competitive market, perhaps, where there are established businesses who will compete with the business and will compete on the basis of price and quality and delivery and customer satisfaction. There's all sorts of external forces related to technology and the changes in technology and to customer expectations. So there are lots of forces operating on the business from outside. But there are also internal forces, forces relating to resources of the business and the quality of the resources. For example, the quality of the labour force and their skills and adaptability, their competencies. And indeed, what are the core competencies of the business? What is it that the business can do best? What is it that the business can focus in on and outcompete others? What's the culture of the business? Is the culture of the business efficiency, or is it a quiet life? Is it an easygoing life? Or what's the culture of the business? What's it like to work there? And also, what are the weaknesses of the business? Because it's only in identifying the weaknesses can the business become strong. Identifying the weaknesses and fixing the weaknesses enables the business to grow in strength. So now we have internal forces and external forces that are linked through the mission statement. And in fact, they also derive the business strategy. The business strategy comes from the interplay of the internal forces and the external forces. That's how the strategy is worked out. It looks at the internal weaknesses and the strengths of the organization, the opportunities and the threats. It looks at many aspects of the financial and economic position that the business will find itself in if it enters a particular market. So it looks at its core competencies, but it also looks at technology, it looks at customers, it looks at the resources of the business, it looks at the internal and the external factors. It looks at, can it successfully deliver the strategy outcomes that it has set itself. And the business strategy develops the business model. The business model is what the business is going to do and how it's going to do it. The business model is much more detailed and much more practical. This one is linking the business to the strategy, what it wants to do. It shows how the specific business, the resources of the business, can be channeled and organized in a way to deliver the chosen strategy. And once the business model has been worked out, then the business unit strategies can be worked out. The business unit is the individual component of the business, perhaps the factory or the warehouse or whatever, and those strategies can be worked out and they can be linked together, so an integrated picture of the business can be derived, and that integrated picture, looking at all of the different aspects of the business, can be traced back to the business strategy. And the business strategy itself is, as the diagram suggests, based on the internal and the external forces and they themselves generate the vision or the mission of the business. So we have a pictorial representation of how strategy formulation comes about and how the different aspects of planning and strategy are linked. Now, let's look at the vision and mission statements. Well, a vision statement used to express the organization's values and aspirations. That's the vision statement is what the business wants. What are its aspirations? Its aspirations are to be market leader. Its aspirations are to deliver a quality product and develop a strong reputation in the market. These are possibilities. So the vision statement are its aspirations. The mission statements express the organization's purpose or reason for existence. So the mission statement is different from the vision statement. The vision statement are its aspirations. What does it want to achieve? The mission statement is, why is it there? Why does it exist? What is the purpose of the business? So they are different statements. One talking about what it wants to achieve, its aspirations, and the other, why is it there? Why does it exist? Core competencies are an important topic within our discussion of strategy and strategy development. Collective knowledge and skills that distinguish an organization from its competitors. That's what we mean by core competencies, or one of the interpretations of core competencies. It's the collective knowledge of the business. It's the skill base of the business. It's what the business can do best. It's the strength of the business. If you like, the key strength of the business. Typically center on an organization's ability to integrate a variety of specific technologies and skills in the development of new products and services. Well, it can be channeled to develop new products and services, but it could also be channeled into further refining existing products and channels, introducing cost reduction, or improving the quality of the product, or in some way enhancing the customer experience of an existing product, related to an existing product. So the core competencies are the essential strengths of the business. The building blocks of core competencies, well, go back here for a second. The building blocks of core competencies are the skills and aptitudes and processes of the business that foster skilled work, the development of a good knowledge base related to the product, the technology, customer requirements, delivery, logistics, and so on. It's integrating all the parts of the business, but doing so in a very efficient manner. That's the building block. The building block are the individual, if you like, bits of information, the individual components of the information structure of the business, taking information from production, from stores, from logistics, from marketing, from HR, and developing a strong business based on best practice in all of those areas. It could be related to new products and new product development. Core competencies, strong core competencies, can lead to new products because the business is not afraid of taking on the challenge of developing a new product. It knows what its strengths are. It knows it has a strong design department or a strong research and development department. It knows that its production people are flexible and capable, and so on and so on. So if it has got strong core competencies, strong abilities, then it will be more likely to engage in developing new products and new ways of working. Better to think of an organization in terms of its portfolio of core core competencies than a portfolio of products? Well, really, products come and go, but the business may continue. So products have life cycles, we know. Some products go into decline after a certain period of time. They become outdated. But core competencies, if they're kept up to date, if the skill base of the workers are kept up to date, if there are good training programs, good learning programs and teaching programs which enable the workers to learn from their experiences and reflect on their experiences and share their knowledge, the organization can best be seen as a portfolio of core competencies. That's what the business is. It's a collection of technologies and a collection of machinery and networks and stores and the layout. That's what it is on the one hand. That's, if you like, the inanimate side of the business. But the doing side, the people side, is the collection of core competencies. And it's probably best to view a business as a portfolio of core competencies. Identifying and developing core competencies is one of top management's most important roles. It's absolutely crucial that the top management should be able to identify and list its core competencies, because those are the strengths. That's where it can develop new products, that's where it can cut costs, that's where it can innovate. That's the business. And it's important that top management can identify those, because those are the, if you like, the facilities, those are the competencies or the facilities that they have got at their disposal to run and manage the business effectively. Now, key characteristics of core competencies and capabilities, well, should be used to gain access to a variety of markets. Well, they can be used for that purpose. The core competencies, once they've been identified, listed, and once there's a program for further refining them and extending them, then the top management will know what markets they can enter, and they can enter with confidence. So they can gain access to a variety of markets. And they should be strongly related to key benefits provided by products or services. So the core competencies, they are linked to the benefits of producing particular products or services, because that's what the business is best at doing. They're best at linking their core competencies to particular products and services, ones that exploit the core competencies more effectively, and there is a linkage, therefore, between the benefits of producing those services and those products and the core competencies. So there is a linkage, a direct linkage between the two. That's what the business does. It looks at its strengths, it looks at its core competencies, and it links it to particular goods and services, ones that properly exploit the core competencies. Ideally, the core competencies should be difficult to imitate. Other companies should find it difficult to compete because they can't duplicate, or if there are many of them, I suppose, replicate the core competencies. The core competencies should have some degree of uniqueness to the business, and they should be developed and cultivated by management so that over time they become stronger and even more difficult still to copy. Now we deal with the topic of outsourcing. Well, this means contracting out production of or parts of or performances or activities. So they're subcontracting out production. Subcontracting it out means getting other companies to produce those components or those products. So what the management does in this case is it identifies the costs of making the products in-house, making the products themselves. So it looks at the cost of that, looks at the capacity of the business also. Have they got the capacity to produce those products? And if it decides it's better to outsource it, it finds companies on the outside who can produce the products and then compares the costs of getting them in that way. There are issues here. For example, outsourced products may still carry the name of the original company, and if the quality is suspect, it may damage the original company. So there are still issues about quality and quality control, even though the product has been outsourced. The company who's outsourcing it still needs to ensure that the quality is of a very high standard so that its own reputation is not damaged. So activities that are not strategically important are good candidates to be outsourced. Ideally, parts of the organization which can be outsourced and are not strategically that important, they could be outsourced. But it happens in many areas, and it's an increasingly important part of modern business. Some companies who have got particular skills and aptitudes and capital, perhaps customized capital, customized machinery, can make certain components, and they will make components for many other companies and deliver the components that then go into the final product. It's common practice, for example, in the car industry. Much of the electronics that go into cars will be outsourced. Other companies will produce them. But those other companies will not just produce electronics for cars, they will produce electronics for consumer electronics, they will produce electronics and electrical systems for a whole range of other industries. Because they have specialist machinery and they have knowledge of the electrical industry and they have personnel who are specifically trained, they are the cheapest and the best to do that job. So it's not in the interest of some companies to make the products themselves. It's far better to outsource it. Now, strategically important parts or activities strongly related to what customers perceive to be key product characteristics. Customers, when they place orders for products, they sometimes look at the characteristics of the product, and some characteristics are more important than others. Depends on the complexity of the product, it depends on the nature of the product and so on. But sometimes customers look at products and consider certain characteristics to be very important. Other characteristics are of minor importance. So it's important that the company understand the buying motivation of the customer, should understand what the customer is actually looking for and pay particular attention to that requirement or that set of requirements. It's important to have highly specialized skills and knowledge when it comes to looking at strategically important parts or activities that may be outsourced. It's important to have highly skilled personnel and detailed knowledge of the companies that are being outsourced to and the quality requirements that's needed, and also the monitoring the flow of production so it synchronizes with the flow in the, if you like, the parent company, the outsourcing company. The outsourced business should supply in a fashion that is synchronized, it's meshed with the production in the outsourcing company, so that there is no idle stock and there's no wastage in the total supply chain. So it's a highly skilled activity, and a lot of information must pass between the company outsourcing and the company that is doing the outsourcing. There's also just generally a lot of skill required in both companies to ensure that the quality and that the processes internally within their own organizations are run efficiently and run in a way that meets customer requirements. Many companies require specialist physical assets. And this is when outsourcing is particularly useful. For example, if a specialist machine is required, which is highly technical and therefore very expensive to acquire and expensive to use, if that's the case, it's important that the machine is run all the time to reduce its overhead burden, to reduce its costs. So it's important that the machine is optimized. The usage of the machine is optimized. And that means that the machine should be able to produce products for different companies, and it should be capable of being switched over to use to meet the requirements, I should say, of different companies that are outsourcing to the business, let's say. So it's not worthwhile the outsourcing company acquiring this piece of capital because it wouldn't be used a lot. But when one company has it and it takes work from many companies who wish to outsource, then the machine can be optimized. So it's a good use of capital. It's important that companies develop technological lead. The lead is in terms of design, of quality procedures. Their companies are efficiently structured and laid out, and that will give them competitive advantage. Part of that could be that some of the work is outsourced. So we have to see the company not as confined within a certain factory space. The company could be within a certain factory space plus parts that are outsourced to other companies, so that the production takes place elsewhere. It goes out and it comes back in the form of semi-finished goods or components or whatever that can be reintegrated into the production process of the outsourcing company. We have this concept of hollowed out. It's the extent that sometimes when most of a firm or a company's complex parts and productions are outsourced. The more that's outsourced, the more hollowed out the business becomes. Parts of the production go elsewhere. So if you like, the business is hollowed out. It's like leaving a hole in the business. Production that perhaps in the past would take place internally within the business is now gone outside the business. So if you like, there's a hole in the business. It's hollowed out. And that's a term. The more hollowed out the business is, the more outsourced it is, and the more it uses outsourcing. Sometimes when complex parts are outsourced, then the skilled labour that previously worked within the business making those components or those parts, they may go to the company now that's now making those parts. So the company will outsource some work, but it may find that some of the workers it had may now leave and join the company that's doing the work that's been outsourced. The workers may leave and join that company. The problem then is, of course, that the supplier may become its competitor. The supplier will have the skilled workforce. They will know all of the knowledge from working in the original company, They will have access to the outsourced plans and specifications and drawings and so on. So they may become the competitor. So there is a danger in outsourcing. Also, we have the creeping break-even phenomenon. It's a vicious circle where products appear to become more expensive to produce in-house as others are outsourced. When a lot of products are outsourced, the ones that are left have to bear the overheads. So they become more expensive. There are fewer products carrying the overheads, may have that are around to make the contribution to the overheads. So even though products are outsourced for efficiency reasons, the ones that remain will now appear to be much more expensive because they're carrying the overheads. So outsourcing, which was designed to make savings, could actually mean that the existing ones that were not outsourced now appear to be very expensive because they're carrying the overheads, as I said. The logical conclusion is the organization ends up producing no outputs. The organization outsources everything. In other words, the production business, ceases to exist. The company, in a sense, becomes a trading company or an assembling company. It gets all the components produced which are outsourced and it assembles them, or it changes the nature of the business completely. And that is a danger. A few words about the product life cycle, because I do this at the end of a lot of the classes, and the reason is I just wanted to bear in mind that we're not dealing here with linear relationships. We're dealing here with this type of development and decline. And it's important that we understand that products are developed, they're introduced, they grow, they mature, and they can decline. And this all happens over time. So there is the constant need to develop new products. There's the constant need to innovate. And that means good research and development facilities. It means a talented workforce, an innovative workforce, and a management structure that is entrepreneurial and willing to listen to new ideas and think about different ways of working and different products that can be made. Because the existing products, the chances are, will decline over time and the business will fold unless there is new development. So strategies are often tied to the life cycle, the product life cycle. Companies are aware of the product life cycle, so what they want to do is to try to prepare for it. So they have to have strategies to try and develop new products, new cost-saving ways of producing the products they've got, and also to develop actually new products built on the skills and abilities and core competencies of the business, but trying to develop new products which will replace the existing products when they start to decline significantly. The length of the life cycle is shrinking. It's shrinking because possibly of technology or customer expectations or globalization. New products are coming in front of us all the time, and existing products really don't have a time to the luxury to develop and be introduced and grow and mature and decline. All of that is shrinking. It's as if the world is going faster. And the length of the life cycle is shrinking. So we are getting new products replacing existing products at a never increasing rate. Business strategy should match the life cycle stages. Business strategy needs to look at each of the stages and have a strategy for each of the stages. When the company experienced product decline, it should have a strategy to manage the decline. When it's growing, it should have a strategy to manage the growth of the product and the growth of the influence of the product in the market. It should have a strategy to meet that. But also, it should have a strategy for replacement, a strategy for development and innovation and change. And it's important that it collects information about customer expectations and customers' requirements so that any future development will meet the requirements. But that's an ongoing requirement of the business, to constantly innovate and constantly change, because the life cycle is shrinking and because there are new processes coming out all the time and new competitors appearing. Globally, there are new competitors appearing. So this talk was on business strategy. We dealt with some very important issues related to business strategies that need to be captured. So it's important that you go back over the video, run it a couple of times, make your own notes, look at the other videos on strategy that are made available on the course, and do some reading and make your own notes to pad out these concepts. But that's all we're going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.